Okay, so real quick, pop quiz. What is the cheapest electric vehicle you can buy in America right now? The Chevrolet Equinox EV, $33,600. That is the cheapest one. The one they advertised as the affordable EV, $33,000. Affordable. Now, what if I told you that right now? Today, there is an electric car that exists, that real humans drive, that has over 600 miles of range, charges from 10 to 70% in 5 minutes, faster than you can buy a coffee, has a massive screen, advanced driver assistance, and genuinely good build quality. And it costs $14,000. $14,000. That is not a typo. That is not a concept car. That is a BYD, a Chinese electric vehicle that is already conquering Asia, already taking over Europe, already outselling Tesla globally, and you cannot buy it in America. Why? Because the US government put a 100% tariff on it. You want that $14,000 car? Cool. It now costs $28,000, plus shipping, plus dealer markup. You are back to $35,000. Congratulations. You just paid the same price as the Chevy Equinox. So today we are going to talk about Chinese EVs, what they are, why America is terrified of them, what the tariffs are actually doing, and the part that nobody wants to say out loud, whether this whole situation is protecting American workers or just protecting American car companies from having to compete. Buckle up, pun intended. What actually is BYD and why should you care? Let me introduce you to BYD, because if you have not heard of them yet, you are going to hear about them a lot in the next 5 years. BYD stands for Build Your Dreams. Yes, seriously, that is the name. And honestly, respect the confidence. BYD started in 1995 as a phone battery company in Shenzhen, China, just making batteries for phones. Nobody was scared of them. Nobody cared. And then quietly, over about 20 years, they became the largest electric vehicle manufacturer on the planet. In 2025, BYD sold 4.6 million vehicles. Tesla sold 1.6 million. Not a typo. BYD sold almost 3 times as many cars as Tesla in 2025. And Tesla is supposed to be the EV company. BYD just walked up and took the crown while most Americans had literally never heard of them. Their cheapest car, the Seagull, sells for around $12,000 in China. They have sold over 1 million Seagulls, one model, 1 million units of a $12,000 electric car. The Seagull alone is outselling entire American car brands. And in March 2026, BYD unveiled their Blade Battery 2.0. Over 1,000 kilometers of range, that is 620 miles. For context, the Tesla Model 3 long range does about 350 miles. BYD just casually doubled it. And the charging? 10% to 70% in 5 minutes. 5. Your phone does not even charge that fast. BYD's European sales jumped 270% in 2025. They are building factories in Hungary, Brazil, Turkey, and Thailand. They are everywhere, except America. And here is where it gets interesting and slightly unhinged. The tariff wall and the loophole. So America looked at BYD, looked at the $14,000 car, looked at the 620-mile range, looked at the 5-minute charging, and said, no thank you. We are going to put a 100% tariff on that. In 2024, the Biden administration quadrupled the tariff on Chinese EVs from 25% to 100%. Then the Trump administration kept that tariff and added rules banning Chinese software and hardware from connected vehicles. So not only can you not buy the car, if a car has Chinese software in it, that is now also illegal from March 2026. The stated reason? National security, protecting American jobs, making sure America wins the EV race. The actual result? The cheapest EV in America is still $33,600. American car companies have been promising a $25,000 EV for a decade. Ford promised it. GM promised it. Tesla promised it. Few have delivered. Meanwhile, BYD is over here selling $14,000 cars and making a profit doing it. But here is where it gets funny. And by funny, I mean the kind of funny where you laugh and then immediately feel bad about laughing. Chinese EVs are already on American roads, legally. There is a U.S. customs provision that allows non-U.S. residents to drive their own foreign-registered vehicles across the border. So Mexican residents who work in cities like San Diego are legally driving their Chinese EVs into California every single day. There are videos on TikTok of Americans losing their minds over Chinese EVs spotted in Southern California. One comment said, and I am quoting, "This car probably costs $15,000, so even with 100% tariffs, it is still cheaper than the EVs here, and it gets better." Canada cracked. In January 2026, Canada signed a deal with China allowing up to 49,000 Chinese-made EVs into the country annually at a 6.1% tariff, not 100%, 6.1. Canada looked at the 100% tariff, looked at its consumers who wanted affordable EVs and said, yeah, we are going a different direction. The annual cap rises to 70,000 by 2030. BYD, Chery, and Geely are all preparing for Canadian market entry by the end of this year. So right now the situation is, Americans cannot buy a $14,000 Chinese EV. Canadians can. And Mexicans are just driving them across the border anyway. How is the tariff wall going? Checks notes. It is complicated. What this means for Detroit. Okay, so let us talk about what is actually at stake here, because this is not just a car story. This is an American economy story. The Alliance for Automotive Innovation, the trade group that represents America's largest automakers, put out a report in February 2026, and their exact words were that the entry of Chinese state-backed vehicles could constitute, quote, an extinction-level event for the U.S. auto sector. Extinction-level event. That is not hyperbole from some random blogger. That is Detroit's own trade group describing what happens if the tariff wall comes down. Here is why. The price gap is not a small competitive disadvantage. The cheapest American EV is $33,600. BYD's fully electric crossover SUV, the one they unveiled recently, is priced at $14,000. That is a $19,600 gap. That is not something Ford or GM can close by cutting costs or improving efficiency. That gap exists because BYD received $1.7 billion in Chinese government subsidies in 2025 alone, representing over 31% of their pre-tax profit. They are not just better at making cars, they are being actively subsidized by the Chinese government to be cheaper. This is not a fair fight. It was never going to be a fair fight. And here is the thing that should make every American worker in the auto industry genuinely nervous. Ford has been quietly exploring ties with Geely, a Chinese automaker, not fighting them, partnering with them. Because Ford's executives understand that if they cannot beat them, they might need to join them. Meanwhile, the US has signaled openness to Chinese EV plants being built on American soil, which is a completely different conversation than the tariff wall suggests is happening publicly. The public message is, keep Chinese EVs out. The private message is, we might need Chinese technology and investment to actually compete. Those two messages cannot both be true for much longer. The uncomfortable economics, okay, real talk. Here is the part that makes this genuinely complicated, and where your brain might start to hurt a little. Bear with me. On one hand, the tariffs are protecting American jobs. The auto industry employs hundreds of thousands of union workers. Detroit, Michigan, Toledo, Ohio. These are real communities built around car manufacturing. If BYD walked in tomorrow with $14,000 EVs, those communities would be devastated. Not inconvenienced, devastated. The Alliance called it an extinction-level event for a reason. On the other hand, the tariffs are costing ordinary American consumers thousands of dollars per car. Every American who wants an electric vehicle is paying a premium that exists purely because of the tariff wall. The average American household is not a union auto worker. They are someone trying to buy a car. And right now, that person is being told the affordable option is not available to them because trade policy. And on the third hand, if that is a thing, the tariffs might not even work long term. Chinese automakers are already building factories in Mexico, Canada, Hungary, and Brazil. Under USMCA, the North American Trade Agreement, a vehicle assembled in Mexico with enough local content can enter the US at 25% tariff instead of 100%, which is still a lot, but significantly less than 100. BYD has not announced a Mexican factory yet, but the playbook is obvious. Build in Mexico. Meet USMCA content requirements. Enter the US market at 25% instead of 100%. The tariff wall has a door in it. It is just in Monterrey, and here is the final uncomfortable math. Even at 100% tariff, doubling the price of a $14,000 car to $28,000, a BYD is still cheaper than a $33,600 Chevy Equinox. The tariff made the gap smaller. It did not close the gap. Chinese EVs are not losing the price war, even with a 100% penalty. What this means for your money. Okay, so why does any of this matter for your money specifically? You do not work in the auto industry. You are not buying a BYD. Why should you care? 3 reasons. Reason 1, this affects every stock you own. Ford, GM, and Tesla make up a significant portion of American equity indexes. If Chinese EVs successfully penetrate the American market, whether through tariff reductions, Mexican factories, or Canadian pressure, those companies face a competitor that is cheaper, increasingly better, and backed by government subsidies. That is not a good competitive situation. Tesla has already lost the global EV sales crown to BYD. If they lose the American market too, the stock implications are significant. If you own an S&P 500 index fund, you own Ford, GM, and Tesla. This is your story too. Reason 2, this is an inflation story wearing a car costume. Tariffs on imported goods raise prices for American consumers. The 100% tariff on Chinese EVs means American consumers pay more for electric vehicles than they would in a free market. More expensive EVs mean slower EV adoption. Slower EV adoption means more Americans staying in gas-powered cars longer. More gas demand means higher gas prices. Higher gas prices feed into inflation. It is all connected. The trade policy conversation and the inflation conversation are the same conversation. Reason 3. The subsidy arms race has already started. China is subsidizing BYD to the tune of $1.7 billion a year. America responded with the Inflation Reduction Act, billions in subsidies for American EV manufacturers. Both governments are now actively subsidizing their auto industries to win a global technology race. That money comes from somewhere. It comes from taxes. It comes from Tariff, the $36 trillion national debt we talked about in the last video. Part of what is going into that debt is the government picking industrial winners and subsidizing them with borrowed money. Welcome to the new global economy. Hope you enjoyed trade wars. So here's where we land on Chinese EVs. BYD sold 4.6 million vehicles in 2025. Tesla sold 1.6 million. BYD makes a $14,000 electric car that charges in 5 minutes and goes 620 miles on a charge. The cheapest American EV is $33,600. There is a 100% tariff keeping BYD out of America. Chinese EVs are already on California roads anyway. Canada just opened the door for 49,000 of them. And Detroit called the whole situation an extinction-level event. The tariffs are protecting American jobs. They are also costing American consumers thousands of dollars per car. They are also probably not going to work forever because Mexico exists and BYD is not stupid. This is not a simple story with a clear good guy and a clear bad guy. It is a complicated story about what happens when the most powerful economy in the world meets a competitor that is genuinely better and cheaper and backed by its government. And the honest answer to whether American automakers can compete long-term without either matching BYD's technology or getting similar government support, nobody knows. And anyone who tells you they do is either selling you a car or selling you a political talking point. Drop a comment. Do you think the tariffs are protecting America or just delaying the inevitable? I genuinely want to know where you land on this one. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications because the Chinese EV story is just getting started. And this one is going to matter a lot more than most people realize. See you in the next one.